What if your own teammates were quietly trying to ruin your career? That's exactly what happened with rookie QB Shedeur Sanders. One veteran offensive lineman's comments after a tough game weren't just criticism, they revealed a secret campaign to sabotage the team's future. And the fallout is shocking. The game started like any other, but by the end it became the match everyone in the NFL couldn't stop talking about. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback drafted in the 5th round, went toe-to-toe with Cam Ward, the #1 overall pick, and shattered expectations. On paper, it was supposed to be a mismatch, a showcase for the top pick to dominate a young, unproven player. Instead, Shedeur stole the spotlight. He threw for 364 yards, totaled 4 touchdowns, and somehow led the team in rushing, all while facing relentless pressure from his own offensive line. The offensive line, led by veteran Bitonio, was supposed to be the shield that protected Shedeur, but every snap revealed cracks. Holes that should have opened for running backs never appeared. Blitzes that should have been picked up turned into free sacks. And yet Shedeur kept his composure. Every time he was forced to scramble, every time the pocket collapsed around him, he found a way to extend plays, evade defenders, and deliver explosive throws downfield. Fans watching live couldn't believe what they were seeing, a rookie carrying the offense almost single-handedly. But the drama didn't stop on the field. Post-game, Bitonio made comments that set the NFL world ablaze. He said, "As a young quarterback, you want to try to control the ball more, especially in that 3rd quarter." It sounded innocent at first, just a critique of a rookie, but those words carried weight. They weren't just analysis, they were a subtle deflection. Bitonio had just publicly criticized Shedeur while ignoring the glaring failures of his own unit, the very line that had left Shedeur exposed all game. Analysts immediately started dissecting the statement. Some saw it as typical veteran talk, but others sensed something darker. And then came the revelation that would shock the Browns organization. This wasn't incompetence or bad luck. It was sabotage. A veteran actively trying to undermine the rookie, intentionally exposing him to failure and attempting to plant doubt in the minds of fans, coaches, and the player himself. The post-game comment wasn't just careless, it was a misstep that revealed a season-long pattern of destructive behavior. By the time the film was reviewed, it became clear. The game that was supposed to be just another matchup had blown the lid off a much bigger story. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just outperforming expectations, he was exposing a veteran willing to sabotage a franchise quarterback. And the implications would ripple through the Browns' locker room, the NFL media, and every fan watching closely. After the final whistle, everyone expected the usual post-game analysis. Breakdowns, praise where it was due, maybe a gentle critique of the mistakes that cost the team a win. But Bitonio didn't follow the script. Instead, he dropped a comment that would ignite a firestorm across the NFL. "As a young quarterback, you want to try to control the ball more, especially in that 3rd quarter," he said. On the surface, it sounded like routine veteran advice, subtle, maybe even reasonable. But to anyone paying attention, it was a loaded statement. Bitonio wasn't just critiquing Shedeur Sanders' decision-making, he was deflecting from his own failings. His offensive line had failed to open a single hole for the running backs, leaving Shedeur scrambling for his life on play after play. The pass game had kept the team in contention, and yet Bitonio chose to highlight 1 quarter, 1 interception, as if that defined the rookie's performance. It wasn't analysis, it was manipulation. Some reporters missed it at first. Others questioned why a veteran would publicly single out a young quarterback while ignoring his own unit's repeated breakdowns. But for Andrew Barry, the Browns' eyes and ears in the locker room, it was immediately clear. This wasn't a one-off remark. It fit a pattern he had been tracking all season. Protection failures that happened at critical moments, assignments repeatedly missed, and a veteran's subtle push to make Shedeur look worse than he actually was. The comment was more than careless words, it was a window into Bitonio's agenda. By planting doubt about the rookie's ball control, Bitonio attempted to shift the narrative away from the offensive line's failures. He wanted the media to focus on 1 mistake, 1 quarter, rather than the 4 touchdowns, 364 passing yards, and overall leadership Shedeur displayed under pressure. It was sabotage disguised as critique, a veteran using his platform to undermine a player who threatened the established hierarchy. And that misstep would be his undoing. Bitonio's words gave Barry the evidence needed to prove what had been suspected for months. This wasn't decline or incompetence, it was intent. The comment exposed a veteran's hidden agenda, a calculated effort to weaken a rookie quarterback, control the narrative, and protect his own position. Within 48 hours, the organization acted. Bitonio was released, a cautionary tale about what happens when insecurity and ego override the team's success. What seemed like a simple post-game remark had revealed the truth. The rookie wasn't failing, he was being undermined. And that revelation would change the trajectory of the team, the locker room, and the rookie's career forever. If Bitonio's post-game comment was the spark, the real story was the pattern it revealed. This wasn't an isolated failure on 1 play or 1 game, It was a season-long series of breakdowns that raised red flags for anyone watching closely. From the first snap of the season, there were moments that just didn't make sense. Running lanes that should have opened never did. Blitzes that were picked up one week disappeared the next. Third and long situations repeatedly turned into pressure-filled scrambles for Shedeur Sanders, as if someone was deliberately leaving him exposed. Andrew Barry, the Browns' front office ace, started charting every play involving Bitonio. He didn't just see mistakes, he saw consistency in failure. The same gaps, the same missed assignments, the same lapses at crucial moments. Fans might chalk it up to bad luck or rookie misreads, but Barry knew better. Patterns tell the truth when words don't, and the patterns here were damning. Even more telling was how the rest of the line performed compared to Bitonio. The veteran lineman was supposed to lead to stabilize the offense, yet time and again he fell short where the younger or less experienced linemen held their ground. On plays that could have been explosive, Bitonio's assignments went unexecuted. On plays that should have been routine, defenders were free to hammer Shedeur Sanders. These weren't random errors. They were strategic failures that always seemed to hit when the rookie quarterback was most vulnerable. Rumors had swirled quietly throughout the season. Some suggested that a veteran resentment existed, players uncomfortable with Shedeur's confidence, his talent, his very presence as a rising star. And when the post-game comments landed, the rumors began to solidify into evidence. Bitonio wasn't just failing himself, he was creating situations where Shedeur couldn't succeed, setting up a rookie for criticism while deflecting blame from himself. The front office dug deeper. They reviewed every tape, spoke with teammates, and compared grading charts. What emerged was undeniable. Bitonio's protection rate was lower than expected for a player of his experience. Run blocking was worse than the worst-performing lineman on the roster. Miscommunication repeatedly left gaps that weren't there before. The conclusion was stark. Either Bitonio was completely washed, or he was actively undermining the quarterback. And the timing, the repetition, the precision, it all pointed to intent. This wasn't speculation anymore. The evidence painted a clear picture, a veteran unwilling to accept change, using his position to sabotage the franchise's future. The post-game comment had just pulled back the curtain. Now the Browns had proof. Within days, the conversation shifted. Bitonio's actions were no longer seen as just mistakes. They were a threat to Shedeur Sanders' development, a risk the team couldn't tolerate any longer. The pattern was clear, and it would force the organization to make a decisive move. Once the front office noticed the pattern, the investigation went into overdrive. Andrew Barry didn't just rely on one game or one comment, he examined the season from snap one. Every protection breakdown, every run-blocking failure, every scramble Sanders had to make under pressure was scrutinized. The film told a story that words alone couldn't. And what emerged was alarming. Bitonio's failures weren't random. They followed a disturbing consistency, almost as if timed to undermine the rookie quarterback's confidence. Barry began charting Bitonio's performance separately from the rest of the line. The numbers were shocking. Protection rate, significantly lower than any reasonable expectation for a veteran with his experience. Run-blocking grades, worst on the entire offensive line. Communication, chaotic, leaving gaps and free rushers in critical moments. And it wasn't just one or two plays, it was a season-long trend. The evidence was piling up, quietly confirming what some insiders had only whispered about. Bitonio was sabotaging Shedeur Sanders. Interviews with other players added context. Some veterans were hesitant to speak, afraid of retaliation, but patterns were undeniable. Several acknowledged subtle resentment toward the rookie not because of his play, but because of what he represented. A new era, a shift in power, a franchise moving forward with a young quarterback who wasn't afraid to shine. Bitonio, intentionally or not, became the ringleader of a small group working against the team's future. Barry's team also reviewed grading sheets comparing Bitonio to younger linemen and even backup players. The disparities were glaring. Plays that should have been routine exploded into chaos when Bitonio was involved. Third and long situations? Too often, defenders were unblocked, forcing Sanders into rushed decisions. High-stakes moments that could have swung games were sabotaged. And when Bitonio spoke post-game about Sanders controlling the ball, especially in the third quarter, it wasn't analysis. It was deflection, a public attempt to plant doubt while ignoring his own unit's repeated failures. Rumors in the locker room suddenly had weight. Veterans uneasy with change, with Shedeur's confidence with the future of the team, they were now exposed by the data. Barry had the evidence, film, statistics, player testimonies. Every piece pointed to the same conclusion. Either Bitonio was completely incapable of performing at a professional level, or he was deliberately creating failures to undermine Sanders. And the context, the repeated timing, the critical situations, made intent impossible to ignore. The investigation wasn't just about numbers, it was about protecting the franchise's most important asset. Sanders had been carrying the team despite being undermined by his own line. His stats, his composure, his leadership, it all highlighted how severe the sabotage had been. By the time the evidence was compiled, there was no room for doubt. Bitonio's actions weren't mistakes. They were a calculated threat to the quarterback's development and the team's future. Within 48 hours, the findings were presented to the higher-ups. The decision was swift. Bitonio had to be released. The evidence was indisputable, the narrative clear, and the message to the locker room unmistakable. Sabotage wouldn't be tolerated, and the franchise would protect its young quarterback at all costs. After Bitonio's firing, the locker room atmosphere shifted immediately, but the ripple effects ran deeper than anyone expected. For weeks, rumors had swirled about veteran players quietly resisting the team's shift toward a younger core. Andrew Barry's investigation revealed more than just one saboteur. It uncovered a subtle but pervasive culture of resistance. Veterans who had once been cornerstones of the offensive line now appeared threatened by Sanders' rapid rise. The rookie's confidence, his talent, his ability to command the huddle, it challenged the old hierarchy. Some players couldn't accept that the franchise was moving forward with a fifth-round pick outperforming a #1 overall selection. Interviews behind closed doors painted a vivid picture. Grant Delpit, normally calm in post-game interviews, showed signs of tension and unease. Observers initially chalked it up to disappointment after a loss, but insiders revealed it was more. Delpit's demeanor reflected frustration at a fractured locker room, where loyalty to veterans sometimes clashed with the organization's push to support the franchise quarterback. Veterans who had dominated for years now faced the uncomfortable reality that their era was ending, and Sanders represented that change. It wasn't personal against him, at least not entirely. It was a fear of being replaced, of seeing their influence diminish, of having the team's focus shift away from them. The Bitonio firing sent a message louder than any press release. Active undermining of the team's future wouldn't be tolerated. It forced veterans to reassess their roles. Suddenly, subtle resistance, whispered complaints, or quiet sabotage could have real consequences. Those who might have quietly opposed Sanders' success were put on notice. The organization was making it clear that the locker room culture would now align fully with the quarterback's development. Either you supported him, or you risked being the next domino. But the situation also highlighted an unexpected side of the locker room dynamics. Some veterans, previously hesitant to speak up, began openly supporting Sanders. Coaches noticed players stepping up to communicate better, execute assignments more precisely, and take ownership of the run game. The removal of the saboteur didn't just fix one weak link, it shifted the entire energy of the team. Confidence spread through the offensive line, and Sanders, for the first time, could trust the protection schemes instead of anticipating failure on every snap. The psychological impact on Sanders was just as important as the tactical one. For weeks, he had internalized mistakes that weren't his fault. He questioned his reads, his timing, even his preparation. Bitonio's repeated failures and public deflection planted seeds of doubt. Now, with that obstacle gone and the locker room realigning, Sanders could play freely, focus entirely on football, and fully leverage his unique skill set. The team's morale began to climb, and analysts started predicting that the Browns could see an entirely new level of performance in the weeks ahead. Ultimately, the lesson was clear: talent alone isn't enough to succeed in the NFL. Even the most promising rookie can be stifled by internal resistance, subtle sabotage, and a fractured locker room. Cleveland's decisive action against Bitonio and any like-minded veterans signaled a cultural shift, one that prioritized performance, unity, and protecting the franchise's future star. Sanders didn't just survive a hostile environment, he emerged stronger, and the AFC North is already taking notice. Joel Bitonio's fatal mistake wasn't made on the field, it was made in front of the cameras. Weeks of subtle sabotage had gone largely unnoticed. A missed block here, a failed assignment there, a run game that never developed. Most observers chalked it up to age or declining performance. But Bitonio's pattern was deliberate, consistent, and carefully masked. He had created just enough chaos to undermine Shedeur Sanders' growth without drawing immediate attention, until that post-game scrum. It started innocuously. Reporters asked about execution. Bitonio gave the expected veteran response, a mix of accountability and deflection. "You can coach things, but at the end of the day, you've got to make the play when it comes your way," he said. On the surface, it sounded reasonable. A seasoned lineman giving a standard analysis. But then he added the line that would seal his fate: "I think as a young quarterback, you want to control the ball a little more, especially in that third quarter." At first, many didn't notice. Analysts dissected the game, praised Sanders' passing stats, and moved on. But for Andrew Barry, the Browns' front office chief, it was a flashing red flag. That one seemingly offhand comment revealed intent. Bitonio wasn't just critiquing the quarterback, he was planting a narrative redirecting attention from his own failures. He wanted the story to be about Sanders' interception in the third quarter, not the complete collapse of the run game or the relentless pressure caused by his own offensive line. This was manipulation disguised as analysis. Bitonio assumed no one was watching closely enough to connect the dots between his public critique and the repeated failures on film. But Bari had been tracking the offensive line all season. He noticed the suspicious consistency, protection breakdowns on key downs, running lanes collapsing precisely when explosive plays were possible, and communication failures that seemed intentional. Patterns were emerging, and Bitonio's public comment was the smoking gun. Within 48 hours, the decision was made. Bitonio was released. The official statement cited performance issues, but everyone in the organization knew the truth. This wasn't a single bad game, it was a season-long attempt to hold back the team's future quarterback. By going public, Bitonio inadvertently exposed the very sabotage he had been hiding. His credibility, which he had relied upon to subtly influence the narrative, became the evidence used against him. The ramifications were immediate. The locker room felt the shockwave. Veterans who had quietly tolerated or even participated in undermining Sanders now understood the organization would act decisively. Bitonio's mistake set a precedent. Subtle sabotage could no longer hide behind veteran status or public charisma. The message was clear: either you support the franchise quarterback completely, or you risk being cut. For Sanders, the impact was profound. Bitonio's firing removed more than just a weak link on the offensive line. It removed doubt, paranoia, and a constant distraction from his development. For the first time, he could trust the protection in front of him. He could focus entirely on reading defenses, executing plays, and leading the offense. What had once been a hostile environment became a platform for growth, and the entire team felt the shift in energy. Bitonio's fatal error illustrates a critical truth in the NFL. Words can be more dangerous than missed blocks. Going public with subtle sabotage doesn't just risk embarrassment, it risks your career. For Cleveland, it was a necessary lesson in accountability. For Shedeur Sanders, it was the unlocking of a potential that had been deliberately suppressed. And for the rest of the league, it was a warning. The rookie in Cleveland isn't just surviving adversity, he's thriving because of it. While Joel Bitonio was busy trying to control the narrative and undermine Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quietly proved why he belonged in the NFL. Despite facing constant pressure from a sabotaging offensive line, Shedeur put up numbers that left fans, analysts, and even veteran players stunned. In the game against the Titans, he threw for 364 yards, tallied 4 total touchdowns, and led the team in rushing, not because he was given opportunities, but because he created them in spite of them. Every scramble, every improvised play was a message. This quarterback wasn't just surviving adversity, he was thriving. What makes Sanders rise so remarkable isn't just the stats, it's the mental fortitude. For weeks, he had to question whether his own team was holding him back. Every miscommunication in the offensive line, every blown protection wasn't just a physical obstacle, it was a psychological battle. Young quarterbacks thrive on rhythm, timing, and trust. When those elements break down repeatedly, doubt creeps in. Most rookies would falter. Sanders didn't. He adapted. He improvised. He carried the offense on his shoulders, and the numbers don't lie. Against Cam Ward, the first overall pick, Sanders outperformed him in every statistical category. More yards, more completions, more touchdowns, and even more rushing yards. The media narrative that Ward was untouchable crumbled, and Sanders' potential became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a game, it was vindication. Analysts like G. Bush had predicted Sanders would outclass the #1 overall pick despite being a 5th rounder. Critics called it delusional, media outlets laughed at the comparison, and yet Sanders proved them wrong on national television. Every pass he completed, every touchdown he scored was a statement. Talent can't be hidden by veteran insecurity or sabotage. And while the offensive line was failing, Sanders made sure the game stayed competitive. He carried a burden no rookie should ever face, and he did it with poise. The psychological implications of this rise are enormous. Before Bitonio's firing, Sanders likely questioned whether the failures on the field were his own. Maybe he stayed late studying film, wondering if he misread defenses or made the wrong decisions. Maybe he internalized the blame that Bitonio tried to shift publicly. But now, with the veterans responsible removed or under scrutiny, Sanders can play freely. He can trust his protection, anticipate plays accurately, and focus entirely on reading defenses rather than surviving them. The change in team energy is palpable. What was once a hostile environment has transformed into a platform for his growth. Sanders' trajectory also sends a warning across the league. Teams that passed on him now look foolish. A 5th-round pick demonstrating the poise, skill, and leadership of a top draft choice is a statement that scouting failures can't hide true talent. For the AFC North, the implications are immediate. If Sanders performs with a full, competent offensive line and an unencumbered environment, his ceiling isn't just high, it's elite. The combination of talent, confidence, and opportunity could make him a franchise quarterback capable of dominating for years. In the end, Shedeur Sanders' rise amid Sabotage isn't just a story of a rookie overcoming obstacles. It's a lesson in resilience, talent, and organizational accountability. It proves that even in the face of deliberate undermining, a player with skill, vision, and mental toughness can shine through. And for the Browns, removing the saboteurs like Bitonio isn't just a disciplinary move, it's an investment in a future star. Sanders has already outplayed expectations, outclassed top competition, and weathered adversity that would have crushed most young quarterbacks. Now, with the shackles of Sabotage removed, there's no telling how high he can rise. The stage is set, the rookie has proven his mettle, and the league is watching closely. Sanders isn't just a story of triumph, he's a warning. Underestimate him at your own risk. The firing of Joel Bitonio isn't just a roster move. It's a seismic shift for the Cleveland Browns and potentially the NFL. Removing a veteran who is actively undermining the franchise quarterback sends a message that goes far beyond one game or one controversial comment. It signals a zero-tolerance policy for sabotage, a commitment to protecting young talent, and a clear message to every player in that locker room. You either support Shedeur Sanders or you don't belong here. And that's a cultural change that will reverberate throughout the organization for years. For the Browns, the immediate impact is obvious. Sanders now has the chance to operate in an environment where trust and communication on the offensive line aren't constantly in question. Gone are the days of wondering if a veteran would let a defender slip through or miss a crucial assignment. With the saboteurs removed, Sanders can focus on what quarterbacks are supposed to do: read defenses, execute plays, and lead the team without the constant fear of being undermined from within. This isn't just a minor improvement, it changes the dynamics of every practice, every game, and every locker room meeting. A quarterback who trusts his protection plays faster, makes smarter decisions, and maximizes his talent. That's exactly what Sanders is about to do. But the implications don't stop at the offensive line. The Browns are now sending a warning to the rest of the roster. Veteran players who feel threatened by emerging talent will be watched closely. The era of passive-aggressive undermining is over. Leadership is no longer measured by tenure or reputation, it's measured by willingness to elevate the team and support the franchise quarterback. For younger players and incoming rookies, this is a blueprint for success. Work hard, earn your role, and don't let ego or insecurity compromise the team. The ripple effect on team culture could be profound, creating an environment where collaboration, accountability, and trust are prioritized over old guard power struggles. The NFL at large is watching too. Bitonio's firing is a cautionary tale for other organizations. Teams with young quarterbacks on the rise will notice the message: protect your future stars. If a rookie quarterback is carrying an offense while veterans are undermining him, that's not just a personnel problem, it's a leadership and culture problem. Organizations that fail to address it risk losing games, stunting player development, and creating locker room dysfunction. Sanders' performance under Sabotage highlights what's at stake. A talented quarterback's trajectory can be drastically altered by internal politics, and league executives can't afford to ignore it. From a competitive standpoint, this change could redefine the Browns' season. Sanders just outperformed the first overall pick while facing consistent internal sabotage. Imagine what he can do with competent protection, full trust, and a team that buys into his leadership. Suddenly, the Browns go from a team struggling with inconsistency to a legitimate contender. Opponents in the AFC North will have to account for a quarterback who not only has elite talent but is now empowered by organizational support. That's a dangerous combination, one that could shift playoff dynamics and alter narratives about who is truly elite at the quarterback position. Finally, there's the long-term lesson. The NFL has always been about talent, but it's also about culture. The Browns' decision to remove Bitonio and any like-minded veterans reinforces that culture is just as important as skill. Teams can't build around potential if internal friction sabotages development. By creating a clear line between supporting the franchise quarterback and undermining him, Cleveland is setting a precedent that others may soon follow. The implications for the NFL are simple. Talent can't thrive in a toxic environment, and organizations that prioritize player development over veteran ego gain a competitive advantage. In short, Sanders' rise, the removal of saboteurs, and the culture reset in Cleveland don't just impact one team. They could shift the way the entire league views leadership, accountability, and the importance of protecting young franchise quarterbacks. The firing of Joel Bonio marks more than just the removal of one problematic player. It's a declaration of intent from the Cleveland Browns. For too long, young quarterbacks have faced the silent threat of internal sabotage, a slow erosion of confidence that rarely makes headlines but can completely derail a career. Bonio's actions weren't mistakes. They were a calculated attempt to undermine Shedeur Sanders, a rookie showing all the signs of becoming a franchise-altering talent. By acting decisively, Andrew Barry sent a message loud and clear. The era of passive-aggressive veteran dominance is over, and protecting the future of the team comes first. For Sanders, the impact is immediate and profound. No longer will he question whether the offensive line is on his side. No longer will he feel the weight of internal friction every time the pocket collapses. Instead, he can focus solely on executing plays, reading defenses, and growing into the quarterback the Browns envisioned when they drafted him. That mental clarity alone is a game changer. Confidence is a quarterback's best asset, and removing the doubt and paranoia planted by veterans like Bonio allows Sanders to finally unlock his full potential. Every decision he makes, every throw he attempts, now comes from a place of preparation and skill, not fear of being sabotaged from within. The firing also sends a warning to the rest of the roster. Support the quarterback or find another team. There is no middle ground. Veteran players who once relied on intimidation or reputation to influence locker room dynamics now face a new reality. Leadership is measured by the ability to elevate the team, not by how much you can maintain control. That shift in culture has implications far beyond one game or one season. It establishes a blueprint for success where accountability, trust, and alignment with the team's goals outweigh tenure, ego, or fear of losing a spotlight. The ripple effect reaches the AFC North and the broader NFL. Teams with young quarterbacks will be watching closely. The lesson is clear: internal sabotage doesn't just affect morale, it affects results. Sanders' performance while being actively undermined highlights how dangerous a fractured locker room can be. Other organizations now have a precedent for addressing subtle sabotage before it becomes a season-long problem, showing that protecting a franchise quarterback is as critical as acquiring one. From a competitive standpoint, the Browns are in a position to change their trajectory. Sanders just outperformed the first overall pick while facing persistent internal obstacles. Imagine what he can accomplish with trust, full protection, and an offense committed to his success. Opposing defenses now face a quarterback who not only has elite talent but is empowered by organizational support. That's a threat that could shift playoff dynamics and redefine narratives about which quarterbacks are truly elite. Finally, the Bonio saga reinforces a larger NFL lesson. Talent alone is never enough. Culture is just as vital. Organizations can't build around potential if internal friction sabotages development. By removing the veterans actively working against Sanders, the Browns not only secure their franchise quarterback, they also set a precedent for how the league should protect young stars. This isn't just about one team. It's about ensuring that the next generation of quarterbacks can thrive without fear of internal roadblocks. In the end, Joel Bonio will be remembered as the veteran who tried to derail greatness and failed. Shedeur Sanders will be remembered as the quarterback who outperformed expectations, overcame sabotage, and now has the foundation to dominate without limits. The Browns' decisive action proves that in the NFL, protecting the future is non-negotiable, and the era of internal sabotage is officially over.